You're listening to the RTI Press Pass powered by Rocky Top Insider.
Welcome into the newest edition of the RTI Press Pass podcast. We have a very special edition today. I'm Ryan Schumpert, and joined with me is Isaac Trotter of 24/7 Sports and CBS. Isaac covers college basketball for those two sites, and the season is almost here. It sneaks up on us, and I feel like we got a pretty good dose. And it won't be last night when you're listening to this, but last night when we're recording, we had the Oklahoma State-Auburn exhibition game. Isaac, how excited are you for basketball, and how quickly is it getting here?
Yeah, no, it's super fun. You know, I was really excited to watch that exhibition game last night, and then the game started. It's like 56 fouls. Guys aren't making threes. You're like, okay, like it's October basketball again. So it's a little bit of a give or take, but I love those little tastes of exhibition play here in October. Just starts to get the juices rolling a little bit. You start to feel a little bit about the teams. And to be honest, for my job, I feel like I spend 3 months being like, what could these teams maybe be? It's so fun to see what they actually are.
Yeah, that's the one with the fouls that I always forget until I watch the first exhibition game. In my favorite, I think when Tennessee played Michigan State 2 years ago, I think Jemiah Mashack had 9 fouls in the exhibition. It was his dream. He could just play as physical as he wanted.
But Dalton Connect had that one extremely sick move too. So like it was like you had to take the 9 fouls because you knew you were probably going to get 1 or 2 really sick Dalton Connect moves.
Yeah, exactly. I almost fell out of my seat at the Breslin Center when he put that behind the back transition dunk on, just bonkers.
Malik Hall, I think, is still trying to get over that play.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's tough. It aged well for him. The Dalton turned out to be Dalton. But in the moment when it was just some random white guy from Northern Colorado that was dunking on him like that, it was extremely tough.
That's like the thing, though. It's like, hey, exhibition games, they don't matter. Like we're trying all those rotations. Yeah, they matter. And I think you can start to see like what what the pecking order is going to be. Like who's going to be like the top alphas. And I think that's the beauty of exhibition play. Like that sometimes gets hidden when you're going up against Gardner-Webb in non-conference play.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tennessee will have a fun one here at the end of this week playing Duke. By the time you're listening to this, Tennessee will have played Ohio State on a closed-door scrimmage in Knoxville over the weekend. So finally getting to play somebody other than themselves. But just to start kind of generally about this Tennessee team, what excites you? Obviously, having to replace a ton from an Elite Eight team a year ago, what gives you confidence that Rick Barnes' 11th team can look like a lot of his last couple and be in the top 10, top 15 this season?
For me, it just starts with point guard play. You know, I think Tennessee has an absolute gem in Jacoby Gillespie. He's one of my favorite point guards in all of college basketball. I was filling out my SEC Player of the Year ballot this morning for CBS. I have him in my top 3 for Player of the Year. I think that he is poised for a monster season. And year after year, it feels like Tennessee somehow just like is able to go into the portal and find magically one of the best guards in the SEC. This one's a little bit more like everyone knows Jacoby Gillespie is really good, but I think he's got a new gear that he can get to. And when you have a point guard play like that, I think that puts you, to have a chance to have a really special season. And Gillespie is the real deal. He guards. Now, he's not as good of a defender as Zakai Ziegler, but he's a solid defender. But he is offensively, I think you can do so much more with him. And if you look at the counting stats last year, it's like, oh, yeah, 14-5, great year. He really had to share the sugar a lot with a Maryland team that's loaded. I think he's at Tennessee is going to put up like the best offensive numbers of his career.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's, he landed on the All-SEC second team, and you look at the guys that are on there, you kind of understand it because there's a lot of proven guards that were really good in the league last year. But I had him on my first team. I think he's, like you said, he's poised for another breakout in which, he was really good a year ago against at Maryland. Tennessee keeps getting, you say they find gold in the portal. They've gotten a little lucky the last 2 years, just in the sense that they've gotten that hometown discount. They got it with Chaz Lanier. They get it again with Jacoby Gillespie. It makes life a little bit easier. So there's been so much buzz, and we'll get into both of them in a little bit. But around Nate Amin, I think with Tennessee's fan base, that Gillespie's really gone under the radar, and he's been stellar. Talking to Rick Barnes yesterday at Media Days in Birmingham, said he's been even better than they expected, and the expectation was pretty darn high.
He's a dog. Like, he is a total dog. He plays like a football player. Like, and that's like one of the best compliments about him. This kid, like, at Belmont, he put up some efficiency numbers that, like, a lot of people in the portal were like, there's no way he can copy this, right? Like, he's not going to shoot 70% at the rim again, and over 40% of his mid-range pull-ups, and over 40% from three again. And he goes to Maryland, and it's all the same things. He just makes it really, really simple. And I also think he's a sneaky good fit for what this offense is, right? Like, we know it's a lot of floppy actions, those pin downs. You got to have shooters that can make jumpers off the move and off the bounce. That's Gillespie's game, like, to a T. And so I think he's going to be terrific for this group. And, I don't think he's like Zakai in the ways where, like, Zakai felt like at times walked on the floor trying to make others better. Jacoby, I think, is on the floor to score first, but he is going to be able to get other guys involved too. But he's definitely on the floor to score first. And there's no doubt in my mind who's getting the ball late in late clock scenarios. It's Gillespie. And Amens is awesome. We'll get into him. But I think Gillespie's the best player on this team.
And Tennessee needs him to be that guy that's looking to score, because I think we'll see what Nate's development looks like over the course of the season, but he is a little bit more of a differential player who wants to make the right play. He's not your prototypical five-star who has scored the ball every single possession, not looking to get others involved. I mean, that's what one of the things Tennessee likes about him, their coaches like about him, is that he's going to make the right play. But when you look at the rest of this roster, you know those two are going to need to score a lot. And I think Gillespie has more of that killer instinct, which is probably good, because the learning curve will be less for him than it will be for a Mitten in his first year of college basketball.
Totally. Yeah. He's just got 3 years of starting underneath his belt. Like, he knows high major basketball now, what that looks like. And again, I go back to just the versatility offensively. He is a extremely well-rounded guy. He's got floaters. He's got runners. He finishes through contact well in the paint. He plays off 2 feet. He hunts contact. Like, I think you're going to get him to the free throw line. The jumper is just like auto. And so, 18 points a game feels like something that I think is firmly in the range of potential outcomes. Because, like I said earlier, like last year, it's like, I got to get Derek Queen some shots. I got to get Juju Reese some shots. Rodney Rice, a good player, got to get him some shots too. This year's team, it feels like, hey, it's Gillespie and Amen. And those two dudes are going to have like heavy max usage. And after that, like, we'll see what the role players kind of figure it out. But it's going to be the Gillespie show to start.
So that leads us into second question. What worries you, or what would be the question marks for this team that would keep them from reaching their potential?
Yeah, who's that third scorer? Like, who's that guy? Like, who is going to be able to just go get you 12 to 14 that can save you sometimes? And like, that was like the beauty of that Tennessee team last year. Like, Jordan Gainey, like, could go win you a game or two. And like, obviously it was the Chaz Lanier show, but Igor Milicic could go help you win a game, go get 12 to 14 points. Like, I just look at this group. It's like, okay, Amari Abram, the 3-and-D stuff with him. Like, I think I get it, but I don't really trust him to like go get you one off the bounce yet. We'll see how his game develops. Felix Okpara is mostly a play finisher. Can he add a little bit more back to the basket game to give you something there too? Cade Phillips, we'll get into him later as well too. One of my favorite defenders in all of college basketball, but he has still some offensive room to grow. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing who that third guy is. Maybe it's JP Estrella, because he is extremely talented. He feels like he's hurt all the time, and he was hurt last year and hurt again this year at certain times too. But if JP could really elevate into being that guy that they can bring off the bench and go get you, double digits, I think that would change the complexion of this roster a bit.
Yeah, I think that's the best case scenario. Like, it's JP, and he's made flashes where, he suffered the injury really all last offseason. He was dealing with it, and they shut him down in November. And, my thought was, all right, he'll be back, and he'll, I'm sure, be able to help them this year. But, how much better is he going to be able to get in a year where he's rehabbing his foot? But watching him in practice, talking to people around the program, it seems like he's made some big strides. So you can see it with him. And I think there's just a little hesitancy because we haven't seen it on the court. Tennessee's so deep in the front court. How many minutes is he really going to play? But we know Rick Barnes is going to be differential to defense when push comes to shove, and that's not his strength. So that's to me that best case scenario for Tennessee is to him to, like you said, just become an 11-point, double-digit scorer on average. but I have a hesitancy to truly go all the way and predict it.
I'm with you, because didn't he also roll his ankle again too in the preseason? So it's like kind of working back
Yes.
from that as well. So it's like you missed a little bit of time, but the skill is there, and you can see that face-up game with him is nice. I expect him to be able to make threes eventually down the road, and just like that face-up game too in the middle of the floor, it's such a nice little habit to have if your bigs can make those little floaters and runners, and JP can certainly do that. But I do agree with you. Like I don't think I would expect him to be 11 points a game if he's at 18 minutes, right? Like what type of role can he grow into, and how healthy can he be, and how can he, again, it's all the meat and potato stuff. Like, do you block out? Do you understand what we're doing defensively in our defensive coverages? Do you not make mistakes defensively? And if you do those things, then you're allowed to go score on the other end.
One, and someone else has said this, is not an original thought for me, but I want to get your thoughts on it as a national college basketball guy. With what Tennessee, maybe not just the build of the roster as a whole, but with how the stats could divide up, how the scoring could look like. A comp that I've heard and liked is of the 22-23 Alabama team with Brandon Miller, where Brandon Miller averaged 19 points a game, Mark Sears averaged 13 points a game. No one else averaged in double digits. You had a lot of guys averaging 8, 7, kind of in that range. I don't think it's going to look like that, where Amit's going to be Brandon Miller and Gillespie's going to be Mark Sears. I think you'll see it a little bit more even and probably a little bit flipped. But two real go-to guys that score at an extremely high level, and then everybody else, there's just not a lot of consistency. I'm curious what you think of that comp.
No, that makes sense to me. I think that Gillespie and Ament are driving this thing. Like, if they're not scoring, they're creating. Like, and that is like that. They are driving the bus offensively. I am really curious how Jalen Carey fits into this mix as well too, because there's some, like, he can give you something some nights depending on matchups and just kind of what they want from their bigs. I don't necessarily think he can stretch the floor consistently, but like there's stuff 15 feet and in there with him that's interesting. And then, I mean, you've probably heard it more than I have, but the Dwayne Brown buzz is legitimately real. So like, and then Ethan Berg, like there's another guy that could theoretically help you. So I like that idea of like, hey, like it's an everybody eats from our secondary guys, but our primary guys are going to kind of drive this thing.
Tennessee's front court, I think, is just fascinating. One, and the roster's built so much different than it was last year, where, look, JP got hurt, so that changed the dynamic. But you had Cade Phillips, who might play, a decent number of minutes at the 3 spot this year, was the only other 5 on the roster besides Felix Okpara last season. And now they return to 3 guys. You get JP back, Cade's back, Felix back. You bring in Jalen Carey, and then you already were like, man, this is just a different looking front court. And then the Dwayne Brown buzz starts. He exceeds all expectations for what they thought that they were going to get. He's got I wondered about his size, how much, he could handle down low, but he's got the tallest standing reach on the team with those tall, broad shoulders, long arms. And, Rick Barnes has said he's been the guy they've been most surprised by. So what do you make of this Tennessee front court? And with those 5 guys, how many different looks they can kind of throw out because of the diversity of skill sets there?
I think it's the second best front court in the SEC behind Florida. And that, I think the smart coaching staffs are really leaning into like, how can we just dominate the rebound battle and dominate the paint battle on both ends? If we can control the paint on both ends, and if we can out rebound our opponents, so basically like kind of winning the shot quality game and the shot volume game at the same time, that makes the math so much easier. Like, it just does. And I think that this Tennessee team could take a little bit of that Florida recipe of just like, hey, like our front court dudes are going to play 18 to 22 minutes, but they're going to come at you in waves. And guess what? We're going to hammer you. We're just going to hit you. And that type of physicality and the ability to play multiple different lineups together and be able to stay fresh and to come at you in waves. We're going to have multiple great offensive rebounders on the floor at all times. We're going to have like bigs that can run the floor in minute 37 like they can in minute 4. Like that type of stuff, I think, can add up over time. And it's going to be a really, really underrated strength of this team. It's not underrated. Like, if we're talking about it now, like it's going to be a major strength of this team, the front court depth. And I'm just curious to see if they can develop a little bit more like complementary skill sets, because Cade hasn't shown much to be a shooter. Felix hasn't shown much to be a shooter yet. Maybe that could theoretically, pop. It feels like JP is the only real guy in this front court mix that you could trust to like make a pick and pop 3. And I wonder if if anybody else can develop that into their game. So it's just, you're not having like two like non-shooters on the floor at all times, which puts a lot of pressure on Ament to make threes, puts a lot of pressure on Gillespie to make threes, and puts a lot of pressure on, that two guard, whether that's Amari Abram or Ethan Berg or whoever, to be a legit knockdown guy.
Rick Barnes loved that Florida roster construction a year ago, and it's clear. I mean, he's really tried to replicate it this season. And what you just said, I think that's up there with my biggest question about this team is just, do they have enough shooting to be able to space the court? Because, JP can do it a little bit. Rick Barnes has talked about letting Felix Okpara do it in spots, which I think is strictly going to be corner threes. See it to believe it. Cade has shot just a ton of them, but I don't know how effective he's going to be at it and how much they're going to trust him to do that. So to me, that's almost the biggest question for this team offensively. And it goes in with, you're just not sure about what the two guard spot looks like. You have two really high level offensive players. You should be an elite offensive rebounding team. This stuff just get bogged down, and can teams pack it in and force you to take a lot of perimeter shots?
I'm with you. That's where I keep going back to, like, how good is this defense at taking the ball away and turning defense into offense? Because I think Cade is one of the best defenders in the league. Like, he's like, not to make the Jemai Meshack comp because they do different things, but like, he is nasty defensively, just like thick, athletic, can move his feet really well. I feel like he gets it. The scouting report, like you said, he was playing the 5 last year undersized, and their interior defense was fine with him on the floor.
Yep.
I think he is going to be a rising star this year on the defensive end. I think Ament is an awesome defender for a freshman. Like, he is enormous. He takes it really seriously. I was watching some of his freshman tape. Like, he guarded Darren Peterson as well as any freshman I saw. Like, he's really active, super long arms. Again, like you say, I feel like he cares a lot about that end. He's not like the 5-stars coming in being like, I got to get 20. And if I'm not getting 20, then I don't give a crap about defense. Like, he will guard. And so, like, I love the idea of like Ament, Cade, Felix, that front court together, like, is going to be really, really stout. I think it weaponizes Gillespie and Abram, whoever, to really pressure the point of attack. And like, if you can just get a few more extra turnovers that you're turning into buckets with all the length and all the athleticism that Tennessee's front court has, I think that could offset it. And if not, I do agree that this half court offense has a chance to be, a little bit of a slog in certain matchups.
I think that's what could be the separator between, or it was the separator between Tennessee's offense last season and Tennessee's offense 2 years ago with Dalton Connect, where they, Rick Barnes is always going to talk about playing fast, and they're never going to play fast because they're going to bog people into too long of defensive possessions. But with a guy like Dalton Connect, they could get out and score in transition 2 years ago, and they just didn't have that last year. They had absolutely no transition offense, and that's why I don't have it pulled up right now. I think they finished the year like 26, 27 in offensive efficiency, and no one, people complained about the offense all year. It didn't look like that often because the games were going to be very low possession, and at times they were really going to, when they couldn't hit shots, they were going to struggle to score. And that's how it is for a lot of teams. But Tennessee didn't have a whole lot of answers to that. And I think through watching Tennessee scrimmage twice, when you have the officials out there and it's treated more like a game, that's where I think Nate can be at his best, or at least most consistent early, is if Tennessee can force turnovers or get long rebounds and get out in transition. He's, with his size, kind of like Dalton. I mean, he's obviously bigger than Dalton, but he is just going to be really tough to keep from getting to the rim in transition.
They're really high on him. They think this is going to work. And you've heard it too, right? Like, they think this is going to work at a really high level, and you could see why. You could see why. I think I want to see just how many easy buckets he can create for them, especially when you're talking about, like, again, like Tennessee's defense, they do such a good job of forcing jumpers, which again can serve as like a turnover, right? When you're able to get out and run those long shots, long rebounds, and you're running. Can he get ahead of the pack a little bit and just quick duck-ins against smaller defenders that, that trail, like in transition defense, that first guard that's going back, like, is Ament able to get up the floor and a quick duck-in to get easy buckets? Like, how those offensive rebounds and putbacks, like the transition layups, like how many of those easy shots getting to the free throw line can he add to this offense? Because I do agree, like, when it gets into the half court, like, you're going to have to kind of run your stuff a little bit. And I have some questions about like his lower body strength and if he can exit, like, some of Chaz Lanier and Dalton Connect's like secret superpowers was how strong they were in their lower half, coming off all those pin down actions and just squaring their hips and pulling up like that. Like, can Nate do that? Maybe. But I still kind of like him more as like a stationary shooter more than an off movement shooter. And I wonder what the balancing act is for this staff of like trying to tweak the offense to like fit his skill sets at a high level and maybe cover up some of his deficiencies as from because he's a freshman, he's young.
I'm completely with you there. I think you're going to see less pin downs, more trying to get him the ball into mid range with his back to the basket to turn and shoot. Like you said, stationary shooter. He seems much more comfortable doing that right now. The one comparison I want to go back to with the offense where I've watched them a few times when they've run these lineups with Cade at the 3 and Nate at the 2, which is just a terror defensively because of the length they have. And then obviously you watch that offensively, you go, how does this work with the lack of shooting 3 through 5? And the comparison I've made is it's going to be Buzz Williams, Texas A&M-esque, where you're going to have two guys. It's not just going to be Wade Taylor. It's going to be Nate Ament and Jacoby Gillespie get to shoot whatever terrible shot they want. And then you're just going to have 3 defensive ends go and attack the basket as hard as you can to rebound. And I think this, again, Florida, all those guys have proven it in the front court. So you're naturally going to go to them as the best front court and probably the best offensive rebounding team in the league. But I think Tennessee has a chance to be not too far behind.
No, I'm with you. That's the thing too. I think the turnover rate for Tennessee will be something I'm really looking at because like shots on the rim, shots on goal, to steal a soccer reference, is everything for this group if you're going to be an awesome offensive rebounding team. So turnovers like have to be low. And Gillespie has been a low turnover guy like throughout his entire career. I also think playing through Ament at the elbows or those mid post backdowns do tend to like be a lower turnover possession, right? Like you're not, because there's not as many dribbles and there's not as many passes. So it gives you a better chance of controlling the ball. That seems to make sense. So like, I think that you could theoretically see this offense be, a really low turnover team, a really good offensive rebounding team. And if you take just enough of the high quality shots, where that's threes and layups, that gives you a steady path to being a high floor group. But again, like you just can't turn the ball over if you don't think your offense is going to be, at a, the super, super potent level. And you especially cannot have live ball turnovers. Like I'd rather have them punt it into the second deck than have a live ball turnover.
Yeah, especially when your defense is as good as Tennessee's been in the past. We'll see if it can get to that level again. I do have some questions, but again, the floor is so high, it's not necessarily a concern. And I do think that's the other thing too. With JP passes the ball really well out of inside, where if he can become a steady force for this team, I think you'll be able to get a lot of get defenses moving in rotations and get a lot of open looks from the perimeter, which is how a lot of this roster is built.
And that's to tie it back to Maryland. That's what Maryland did a lot with Derek Queen and Juju Reese at times last year. And Gillespie is an unbelievable long closeout attacker. Like, because if you get at that long closeout, whether that's JP or Nate, being able to like suck in that second defender, and Gillespie's the guy that you're closing out on, he's a terrific shooter. So teams are just flying out at him. And then his shot fakes, his hesitations, he just catches and goes, gets right to the paint, no wasted movement. Like that's where he's maybe at his best. So I agree with you. I wonder, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I wonder what Tennessee's isolation rate will end up looking like this year in the half court. I think it could end up being one of the higher marks because playing through Ament, playing through JP, and then kind of trying to get those scramble drill long closeouts seems like a pretty good recipe to put pressure on the rim.
We've touched on a couple of guys that could be here, so feel free to loop back. But who do you see as an X factor on this roster?
Amari Abram. I just like it didn't work out at Ole Miss for a variety of reasons. I watched that Louisiana Tech team probably way more than I should have last year because I'm a huge Caden Cooper fan. Anyway, Abram had games where he just was like AWOL, just didn't do any, like just invisible. And so like, you just can't have that this year. Like you just can't. He has got to like buy completely in to being a total pest defensively. He has to make open shots and he has to make good decisions. And if he simplifies his game, I think he could really help this team as a third or fourth option. And then I think Cade's development is huge offensively as well. Because if I think he's an NBA caliber defender. And if the offense can just be good enough to keep him on the floor, you'll get to fully see that he can make a run at SEC Defensive Player of the Year.
We haven't talked specifically about it. I imagine you're at the same place where, to me, the 2 guard spot, it's gonna the vast majority of the minutes I think will be Amari Abram and Ethan Berg. I don't know if you're in the same spot there.
I agree. What were early impressions on Berg? I've had a hard time like kind of getting a feel for him.
Yeah, I mean that's classic. I was doing that this week when I was voting for all these SEC teams, and it's like Texas with some of the Euro guys. I'm like, I just have literally zero clue what to expect from them. More athletic than I expected. I mean, that was the talking point when they got him, is that he's good at getting to the basket. He's good at creating offensively, and I think I was maybe a little bit skeptical of that, but we've seen that they've done some things tinkering with his shot. I think the speed of the game and turnover concerns is something that I still have right now, but look, he's been here for a month and a half at this point. He got here really, really late, so you hope that improves. I've kind of been where I think Abram fits better in the starting lineup because of his defense, because he is going to know what his role is offensively, is just mostly a catch and shoot guy, and Berg being kind of a spark off the bench, kind of the way Gainey was by the end of last year. I think that would be a very ideal situation for him to be what Gainey was by the end of last year, but maybe a lesser version of that where he can create some offense.
And that's where I think just nuance is so important, like context too. Remember, Gainey's first year at Tennessee was not, I mean, it was high highs and some low lows too. So,
Yeah.
And then the second year, I felt like he was a lot more consistent on a night-to-night basis, kind of understanding your role. So, yeah, the version of Ethan Berg, what he's probably going to be in November and what he'll be in February, could be vastly different players. And then you hope to keep him because that second-year bump is probably going to be legit.
Completely agree. Yeah, I mean, Gainey, I can't remember the numbers, but his first year at Tennessee, he just had a brutal 3-point shooting stretch to begin SEC play. I think him and Josiah were going through one at the same time, which had the fans a little restless. But no, I think he was the most overlooked player on last year's team. He changed the team when they became a lot better offensively down the stretch, because they all of a sudden had a second player who could get downhill and get to the basket, because Chaz wasn't going to be able to do that. And Zakai was just always, he could do it, but he was always limited in how he was going to finish at his size. Gainey completely changed and made them much more consistent. I don't know if necessarily dynamic, but much more consistent. Even when he didn't shoot the ball from 3, I think as well as, I think Evan Miyakawa had him as a guy that was predicted to have a big jump last year because he thought he would shoot the 3 way better. I think that was the path that everybody thought to Gainey being better. And he really didn't shoot it too much better, but still was a significantly better player.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, I think we saw a ton of examples last year of like, hey, when your fourth guard is really, really good, you can have an awesome team. Florida with Denzel Aberdeen was a huge example of this. Auburn, like some of the dudes that they were bringing, Tahad, right, was their fourth guard, which is like stupid. So like that fourth guard is going to be, can kind of change and elevate your team. And that's a major question for this group, because like, I don't love what I've seen from Bishop Boswell throughout his career. Like, we'll see, right? Like what type of player he can turn into be. Is Amari Evans ready to like crack this rotation and be a piece like there? Like, Masamba, like I'm not really sure if I'm there yet with that. So it's like, there's a lot of questions on this backcourt of like those secondary guards. And if a few of them can emerge like Berg, I think that does change the complexion of how you feel about Tennessee's, floor and ceiling combination.
Evans has been tough. He's been injured so much, but that does leave me. I think JP would probably be my true breakout answer, or X factor answer. But to go with a different name is Troy Henderson, and he's a very talented offensive player. If he can handle the ball well enough and play well enough defensively, which that's been the big question from people I've talked to, is the defense. The possibility of playing him and Jacoby together and being able to play Jacoby off the ball and have him run off pin downs and hunt his shot that way, I think is really, really intriguing.
I love 2-point guard looks too, because I think you can play with more pace. You can be even more aggressive defensively at the point of attack, just really like 94 feet, picking you up, trying to again, force longer and longer possessions and get offenses into late clock scenarios. If you can rebound, which I think Tennessee will, 2-point guard looks are a nice little wrinkle to have in your sleeve, just based on matchups, personnel, stuff like that. And I also don't worry about small guards as much in the SEC as I used to. Like, there's a lot of small guards in the SEC you can guard. Like, I can go down the list. Like, you play LSU, like he can go guard Deaton Thomas. Like, he's 5'10", right? Like, Tahad is, 6'1". You kind of go through the list. Like, there's plenty of small, Josh Hubbard's like 5'11" on a really good day. So it's like you can there's small guards you can find. I don't think that it's like a problem to have a 6'1" guard or 2 6'1" guards on the floor at all times, especially with how big this front court is.
All right, let's pivot to a little bit of where Tennessee stacks up. An interesting dichotomy that just seen over the offseason as a whole, because Bart Torvik's rankings have been out for a while. The analytics site seemingly a little higher on Tennessee. Tennessee 9 on Kimpom, 13 on Torvik. Miyakawa, they're 15th. They come in at 18 in the AP poll. I feel like a number of other rankings you see them maybe in that 18 to 22, 23 range. Is there a reason that you would point to for maybe the difference in rankings there or viewings there between the voters and the metrics, and kind of where do you think Tennessee stacks up?
Yeah, I think it's basically the computers have a lot of respect for this defense and the history of like, hey, this defense is probably push comes to shove going to be a top 5 unit just because that's what it is. So that's, I think, where that's coming from. I think when you bring in the human aspect into it, people just go, okay, wait, so Zakai Ziegler's not on this team anymore. Jemai Mashak's not on this team anymore. Chaz Lanier's not here. Dalton Connect's in the Lakers. Igor's not here. Like how do I get this team to top 10? I kind of fall in the middle. I think I have Tennessee 16th, I think, is what I had them in the rankings. I think this is a team that their front court defense, the rebounding, dominating the rim gives them such a high floor. I love their point guard play. So that type of path there makes me think that it's really hard for them to bottom out. I think this team sticks in the top 25 all year long. I just have concerns like we've talked about of just like if this half court offense is going to be good enough to, make a run to be a tier 1 national title contender. Cause I think I have to go back and look at it, but I think it's a 9 or 10 year sample size of like the national champion has been better on offense than it has been on defense. And I think that trend, I'm kind of buying that because it feels like, free throw shooting is up, 3-point shooting rate has gone up. Offenses have like gotten better and more efficient. Like the offenses in college basketball scored more than ever in the last few years. Like it's an offense first sport. And so like, that's maybe my one hesitation to put Tennessee in that top 10 range. But the computers like do make you reevaluate it. Cause if this defense really is legit and Jacoby's good and Nate is playing like a lottery pick, it's not that hard to envision, Tennessee getting into that top 10 range if their defense is, the number 2 unit in the country and the offense is 27th.
The offensive efficiency numbers going up is a great point. Like I remember diving into it at some point last year where it's like Tennessee's, Rick's best offense was the second Grant Admiral team. I think it finished 3rd in KenPom. It was like Tennessee's offensive efficiency rate last year, which again was an offense that at times just felt very, very sluggish. Would have been like 5th or 6th nationally that year. It was right behind from an efficiency rating. So, that's a good point. It's like the margins are always small in that stuff. Houston makes 3 more shots, 2 more shots from the field in the last 8 minutes in a national championship. We might not feel the same way, but it is what it is. And I think the other thing too with the voters is, look, there's a lot on this team's riding with Nate, and I think people are understandably skeptical about relying a lot on a true freshman, especially for Barnes, who at Tennessee really has not been great with the one and done guys. Now Nate's a different talent. I don't think just being around it every day, talking to people, I don't have those concerns at the same level, but I also think they're understandable, especially for someone like we're saying, who Nate was a late riser. He was the number 50 player in the country the year before he committed to Tennessee, somewhere in that range. He's not just this go-getter bucket type guy. Like I understand how people have those concerns,
especially when he's also more of like a long-term bet. Like it's
exactly.
Like he's 4th in the class because of what he will be in 5 years.
Exactly.
And but I will also say this: not all freshmen are created equal. Sometimes your 5 stars are DJ Wagner and Aaron Bradshaw, and sometimes your 5 stars are Darren Peterson and Nate Ament. So like,
Yep.
Not all classes are the same, and I do expect him. I have him number 1 in my SEC Freshman of the Year rankings, just when you based on like the role and projection that he's going to have for this group. Like he's going to be a Freshman of the Year contender in this league, and Tennessee needs every stinking bit of it, right? Like they need everything of it.
All right, last thing to get you out on, same type of thing. Where do you think Tennessee stacks up in the SEC, and where SEC this year compared to last year? How, I'm sure it won't be the same. How close do you think it'll be?
Yeah, so to answer the first question, I like tiers so much more than rankings. My first tier in the SEC is Kentucky and Florida. I think Kentucky actually wins the league this year, but That's a little bit of a hot take, but Florida is going to be really good again. And then that second tier, I would put Tennessee, Alabama. Tennessee and Alabama feel like the most safest, I think, just because I know Alabama's offense is going to be awesome, and I know Tennessee's defense is probably going to be really freaking good. And so, like, those two units I feel pretty good about. And then, just to kind of look over the SEC in general, this league has to go down, right? There's no way it can be as good as it was last year. Just when you look at like all of the dudes that left, like I was kind of going through it, like top 30 scores at the high major ranks. Like I think the SEC is only bringing back 4. Like it's one of the lowest of all the high majors. It just speaks to like how many like awesome dudes were in this conference last year, right? Like you're losing your Walter Clayton Juniors, you're losing your Janai Brooms, you're losing your Zakai Zieglers. Like there's dudes that just walked out the door. So I think the SEC will go down just a tad. I have more questions about the middle of the pack. Like Auburn, I think I had them 6th, and their defense could be an absolute train wreck in the SEC this year. Like Missouri, they lose Tamar Bates, they lose like some Caleb Grill. Like that offense could easily take a big step back. Like so, some of those teams in the middle of the pack that looked like maybe national title contenders last year have a lot more flaws, and so I expect the SEC to come down to earth just a little bit. That being said, this is still the second best league in the country at minimum.
What do you think? What conference do you think will be the best?
Big Ten, I think this is the year for them. Big Ten has like that combination of just 4 national championship contenders at the top, and then every roster is just like really solid with awesome guard play. Like I think the Big Ten, to go back to the point about like the top 30 scores, the Big Ten has 17 top 30 scores back. The SEC has 4. So it's just like there's a lot more retention in the Big Ten, which is kind of crazy. The SEC is going to be a little bit more of like a lot of newcomers, new faces, new places. Like, how does this all work? The Big Ten's a lot more retention. So I think the Big Ten will pass the SEC and be number 1. And then, but the SEC will still be 2, just because the money in this league is nasty. Like you see it in portal rankings, you see it in the type of guys you're able to bring into the league, and from the freshman class as well. Like there's a reason why like Kentucky and Tennessee and Alabama like have all these awesome influx of talent, because they got bags.
Well, Isaac, man, really appreciate you joining us. Great stuff as always. I guess we got 2.5 weeks until the season starts. What can we check out from you over at CBS and 24/7 before then?
Content. We have so many previews coming out. I'm actually working on a Tennessee preview that'll be out, I believe, next week at times, middle of the week next week. And then the SEC preview will be out, I believe, the 25th. And we're rolling everything out over the next little bit. Our All-American teams will be there. I would be stunned if Jacoby Gillespie does not have more than 1 vote, because he got 1 vote from me. So I hope he got a couple other votes too. So yeah, we'll have lots of Tennessee based content in the next couple of weeks before the season gets rolling.
Well, awesome, Isaac. Everybody, appreciate you joining us. Rick and I will be back next week for a deeper dive, strictly on Tennessee and looking at the schedule and a little bit more stuff into weeds. But Isaac, appreciate it, man, and come back and join us for the next one.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.